Hey there, it's April with Possible Diet, and today I am going to teach you how to make a St. Patrick's Day healthy hash. Now, I'm half Filipino and half Irish, so of course, every year on St. Patrick's Day, we celebrate our Irish heritage by having corned beef and cabbage, which I recently found out is like not actually Irish at all. It's like brought over from Irish Americans. And corned beef was made by like Irish delicatessen owners, inspired by Jewish delis. So it's not even Irish. But I grew up being, associating a lot with my Irish heritage. And I had to kind of cut back on things like potatoes when I was losing weight. But I love corned beef hash. And for this recipe, you don't want to use corned beef in a can. I grew up on it. It's a processed food. It's not that great for you. You want to start with any leftover corned beef that you might have. Hopefully you got some, nitrate-free corned beef at your local natural food store. I linked to an Alton Brown recipe if you want to make your own corned beef from brisket from scratch. And I like to actually, when I have leftover corned beef, I freeze it so that if I want to make corned beef hash, I have it readily available and I don't need to like special order or make my own corned beef. So that being said, I replaced the potatoes in this corned beef hash with diced garnet sweet potatoes. They might have been mislabeled at the stores. You can use garnet yams if you want. And purple sweet potatoes, which I discovered in Hawaii. And I like it, I'm all about adding color and variety to dishes so that you can keep your palate excited visually as well as taste-wise. You want to dice these in pretty small pieces, and what we're going to do is parboil these. And what that does is two things. First, it gives us a head start on the cooking so that the hash cooks quicker in the oven. And the second thing that it does is it creates a layer of starch on the outside of the potatoes that is going to help them brown better. This is why the best French fries are usually twice fried, or at least boiled, chilled, and then fried. I use that time in between when the potatoes are resting to chop up all my veggies, since it takes a minute and it gives the sweet potatoes a chance to kind of just chill for a sec. And then we're going to mix it all together with some bacon fat, duck fat if you're feeling super indulgent and you bought it at your local natural food store. Not many people have rendered duck fat just laying around, but if that's your jam, feel free to go to town. And then we're going to dump it all into a pan and finish it in the oven so that the corned beef gets nice and crispy. So I'll meet you back here when my vegetables are chopped and we're ready to like stir it all up in the fat. One more thing, I like to bake this in a shallow pan because it cooks faster. So I recommend baking it in more of like a jelly roll type pan than a 9x13 kind of like deep dish cake pan. Pro tip. Hey, so we're back. We have parboiled our potatoes, purple and garnet sweet potatoes, and these should be still pretty firm. They shouldn't be cooked all the way through. They should give like a little bit of give, but they shouldn't be as soft as they would be if you were making mashed potatoes, for example, because remember, we're going to cook them again. And now I have all of my vegetables prepped. Generally for these, what I like to do when you parboil these potatoes is bring them to a boil, turn the heat off, and then just let them sit while you finish prepping your ingredients on the hot stove. Just turn the stove off and let them sit in the hot water. And then once your ingredients are ready, go ahead and drain them. This has a lot of bacon fat in it, this dish. But if you've watched my bacon fried rice tutorial, you know that I'm a fan. I generally only use bacon. I only eat bacon that like doesn't have nitrates, doesn't have sugar. Like it's pretty much like salt and pork. And, I like, I don't mind using the fat that comes from that kind of bacon because I feel like it's, if the pork has been treated well, it's not like toxic fat. Anyway, quarter cup of bacon fat. You can use duck fat if you have it. I have heard that duck fat is some of the best fat that you can use for breakfast hash, but I'm just not inclined to pay like $13 for a jar of duck fat because I don't use it that often. The other ingredients in this are, of course, our corned beef. This is a little, it's like a generous cup of corned beef. You can tailor it to however much or how little you want in your thing. And we're just going to put it right here in the fat until it's released its own fat, until you can't really see the veins of fat in the corned beef. So go ahead and add that. And then once you give this a quick stir, I add mojo Cuban rub, which is kind of a weird thing to add to like breakfast hash, but if Cubans designed a seasoning to go specifically with pork, I am not going to argue. I'm even going to try it on beef brisket because who knows, it might be tasty. You could totally leave it out if you don't like it, but I like the flavor. It has a little bit of sugar in it, but I'm not sweating it. Oh, it smells so good. I added it on a whim one time, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to add that every time. Probably the result of watching the movie Chef and then the Chef show. So again, this is a lot of fat going on in here, and it shouldn't take too long for that corned beef to kind of like release its own fat and start to look a little bit transparent. At that point, you want to add the onions. Give it a stir. And you've noticed that I've diced the onions and the radishes a little bit smaller than the potatoes, and that's intentional. The radishes have a really strong flavor, and I like it, but you can leave them out if you want. I just like every opportunity to add more vegetables to a dish is a win in my book. I like to have a rainbow on my plate. And I think that there's just things that we don't know about vegetables and phytonutrients that we're going to discover. And I think that when you have a lot of variety in your diet, specifically when it comes to fruits and vegetables, it can only improve your health. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what I believe. So then once your onions are kind of like coated in the fat and mingling with the bacon, with the corned beef, go ahead and add your radishes. And the corned beef is really just for flavor. So if you're vegetarian, try using like some vegan chorizo. Any kind of meat that has a strong flavor will kind of like infuse this hash. And that's how I like to use meat sometimes as a condiment, really. And you can use turkey sausage, like turkey Italian sausage, anything that you like. I have a great tutorial on butternut squash and a sausage bowl. That's great. But the real, this is just sort of like a playground of flavors here. Corned beef was just on my mind because St. Patrick's Day, so I thought I'd make a tutorial for it. Once this is cooked down a little bit, turn it off. Add your bell peppers. You can see I've diced these bell peppers about that big, somewhere between the radishes and the potatoes. And you can keep the corned beef in big chunks if you want. I like it thin sliced and then diced because then you kind of get like a little bit in every flavor. Give that a stir. And then in a metal bowl, because you don't want the bacon grease to like melt a plastic bowl, go ahead and put your potatoes in. I like to rough them up a little bit. I read in a food lab blog that, the more surface area the fat has a chance to get into. You can do this with a metal spoon too. It's like particularly good at bashing. I'm just too lazy to go get one. The more surface area the fat has a chance to cover, in potatoes, the better they roast. So mash them up a little bit. You don't want to mash them. You can tell that you've cooked them right if you try to mash them and they don't mash. That's when you got it. And then take all of this, pour it on top. And as far as bell peppers go, I use whatever I have in the fridge. If all I have are yellow, I use yellow. Sometimes I'll use a mix of red and green. Green is, they're really strongly flavored, so not everyone is a super fan of green bell peppers. I like them in this dish because of that bite and also the Cuban rub. But you can just as easily use red or yellow or orange or whatever's on sale at the market. Make sure everything gets coated in that delicious Cuban mojo seasoned bacon fat. And then you were going to take this, put it in a preheated 425 degree oven and bake it for 20 or 30 minutes until your desired doneness. I leave it in there until the corned beef is appropriately crispy. And some people, you know, don't like it crispy, they're fine. But cook it to your liking. Broil it if you want to. So I'll meet you back here when this is done. It's been 25 minutes and our corned beef hash is done. Look at how beautiful this is. Who says that you can't have corned beef hash and still eat the rainbow? I'm a fan. Now, I've taken the liberty of sauteing some chard in a little olive oil and garlic salt. I've fried a couple of eggs. And I'm gonna help myself to some of this hash. The corned beef is like crispy on the top. The potatoes are cooked through. The bell peppers are cooked but not overdone. I mean, this is just a beautiful plate. Look at that. You can have a healthy breakfast and still have your corned beef hash and eggs. Enjoy.